Alright, hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast Doug. In today's episode I'm going to be discussing takeaways from the Sunday slate of action, week 12 of the 2022 NFL season. And well, during this slate of action, quarterbacks certainly drew some attention to themselves in the afternoon slate, and also one team that continues to be down bad, remains down bad. Also, potential playoff preview on the afternoon slot between a couple of ASC teams. And with that, we're going to get right into the action, starting with the Jets. So Zach Wilson might not get his job back if Mike White can continue to elevate the Jets offense. So the Jets thumped the Bears 31-10 in this game, scoring the most points in the game since their 40-17 victory over the Dolphins in week 5. The Jets offense racked up a season high 466 yards of total offense, with Mike White under center, and also Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore can look like a dynamic duo wideout, combining for 7 catches, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Despite some rainy conditions, White threw for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns, which included some deep strikes downfield. This week, the Jets decided going into this game that they were going to bench Zach Wilson after his bad Week 11 performance in a post-game podium remarks in which he didn't take accountability for a poor outing. So according to Jay Glazer from Fox Sports, the Jets have lost confidence in Wilson and he's lost assurance in himself. And per Glazer, the Jets won't reinsert him into the lineup until he finds his groove again. But honestly, as long as the Jets win games and move the ball on offense with White, Wilson, well, he can have all the time he wants to find his groove because he isn't likely to get his starting position back this season. The Jets are 7-4. Their roster is playoff ready. They're in really good spot for contention, mathematically speaking, for a playoff spot. And honestly, head coach Robert Saleh, he made that difficult decision to bench Zach Wilson. Well, I don't know how difficult it was, but I guess in a way I can kind of understand it. He played bad, yes, but he's also a guy who spent a first round pick on. But ultimately, Salah's got to make another decision, and that decision is to start the best player quarterback. And right now, that person is Mike White. And Mike White it was far better than Wilson in terms of utilizing his playmakers around him on offense. And I know it's easy for people to look at this game and say, oh, well, you played the Bears who were starting their backup quarterback, and also they were playing that Bears defense. Yeah, sure, but I don't think it was about who the opponent was. I think it was about what the Jets could do, or how much different the Jets would look with Mike White under center. And so far, we got an answer. Now, some people might want to write off Zach Wilson after one game. I want to see what happens next week. Because next week, the Jets play the Vikings, so I want to see what Mike White can do, right? Like, show me some consistency. You play one good game, that's good. You got yourself another week with a starting job. Now do it again. Be consistent. It's okay to have a bad game, but I think ultimately you just got to show that you can provide more consistency, more stability under center. And as for Zach Wilson, I do feel bad for the kid, but ultimately, I think other teams are showing too, but that pretty much, just because you spent the first round pick on the guy doesn't mean you have to stick with him. I mean, look at Sam Darnold. He was a first round pick from the Jets, and that clearly wasn't working out, so they shipped him away. And if things aren't working out with Zach Wilson and Mike White looks like a better option, then I think the choice is rather obvious. So in terms of what you got to do. Broncos. Nathaniel Hackett is probably one and done as a head coach. So the Broncos entered Week 12 with a league's lowest scoring offense. The Broncos would have then dropped their third consecutive game. Russell Wilson went 19-35 for 142 yards and a touchdown, which might not sound bad, but stats can often be deceiving. The Broncos would lose 23-10 to the Panthers. So last week, before a matchup with the Raiders, Nathaniel Hackett would cede play calling duty to quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator Clint Kubiak. Clint has some experience calling plays on offense. He did it last year for the Vikings as their offensive coordinator. But since that switch, Denver has scored just 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, their defense ranks in the top 3 in yards and points. So at the very least, their defense going into Week 12 is still playing good. But the quarterback, who signed a 5-year, $245 million extension with $165 million guaranteed, has not been playing good, and Hackett will likely become the scapegoat for the issues which continue to shine more than anything else. As a former offensive coordinator who no longer calls plays for a squad that seems ready to implode, Hackett will end up having to accept much of the blame for these subpar results this season, and when you toss in poor clock management and also a league-leading 8.3 penalties per game going into Sunday, well, ownership, which did not hire Hackett, well, they have more than enough reason to fire him within the next couple of months. And I don't like to advocate for people getting fired, and I don't like to see coaches be one and done, but ultimately Nathaniel Hackett was put in a situation where he had to win. When you took the Denver Broncos head coaching job, you took it with the expectation that you would produce a winning football team, and you haven't produced. So I think that's just the difference. You know, when it comes to head coaching jobs, you have to look at what are the expectations for this club. For the Broncos, the expectation was to be a playoff contender. You're not a playoff contender, you're a playoff pretender. So I think if Nathaniel Hackett does get fired, then yeah, certainly Denver will have to find somebody. Then hopefully the next person who is interested takes that job, understands what the expectations are, and they can deliver in a way that Hackett simply couldn't. Bengals and Titans, they battled in a potential playoff preview. So the Bengals and Titans would play each other for the second time in about 10 months, and just like their divisional round in 2021, the Bengals would win by a slim margin. In a battle between AFC heavyweights, these squads went back and forth in a regular season contest that had a playoff atmosphere to it. Both clubs played a physical style, but the Bengals, they had the advantage, and that advantage was holding running back Derrick Henry to 38 rushing yards. Meanwhile, the Bengals would rush for 108 yards in the score despite not having their starter Joe Mixon. The Bengals looked impressive in this victory because they came out on top against a top-tier opponent without Mixon and star wide receiver Jamar Chase. So the Bengals had an 0-2 start to the season, but since then they've won 7 out of 9 games, and they certainly look like the group last year that went on a tear late in the season, winning 6 of 7 contests starting from week 15, and that culminated with a trip to the Super Bowl. They didn't win, but I don't think anybody expected them to be there, but nonetheless they were there. And nonetheless, the Bengals might have to go toe-to-toe with the Titans once again come January. And honestly, I'm all for that. Sign me up for round 3. Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence got himself a signature win over the Ravens, and that certainly bodes well for his development. Now, Trevor Lawrence has made some moderate strides between his rookie and second season. He has struggled with some inconsistencies, such as turnovers and ball placement. You look at week 4 against the Eagles, he threw an interception and lost 3 fumbles. Then you look at weeks 8 and 9, he would give away 3 possessions, 2 interceptions and a fumble. And before week 12, he had completed less than 59% of his passes in half of the team's games. But on Sunday, he had a strong outing against Baltimore, going 29-37 for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns. Doug Peterson would show the ultimate faith in his quarterback, calling for a 2-point conversion with the game on the line, and Lawrence connected with Zay Jones for the go-ahead score. In addition to the Jaguars getting the victory, Peterson's decision to put the ball in Lawrence's hands should go a long way to boosting his confidence following a shaky stretch before the bye week. Now the Jaguars are still below 500, so they're sitting at 4-7, and they certainly have a lot of ground to make up to enter the playoff picture. I don't think they make the playoffs, but their triumph over the Ravens in dramatic fashion may lead them in the right direction for the remainder of the season. So I think really for the Jaguars, just as I was talking about expectations, I don't think the expectation for the Jaguars job was for them to be contenders. It was to simply establish a culture that was not established when Urban Meyer was hired as the head coach. Establish a culture and make Trevor Lawrence look like the potential franchise quarterback. Give him a culture, an environment that he can succeed in, that he can develop in, and he can start to look like the franchise guy that he was drafted number 1 overall to be. And I would say, yeah, the Jaguars, they're on the right track. They're not making the postseason this year, I don't think. But I don't think that was the point. I think the point was for Peterson to come in and say, like, hey, I'm the guy who's going to help out Trevor Lawrence become the franchise guy. And you know what? Peterson, he's earned year 2 on the job. Trevor Lawrence, he's earned another year under center. So, I'm looking forward to see what the Jaguars do the rest of the year. And certainly 2023 could be an interesting season for the Jaguars as well. But that's next year. This is this season. We still got some time to go. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of NFL Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.